Hey, Bryan.
Hey Morris, what's up?
How are you? Not a
I'm
lot.
bueno,
So
and
we're picking up with part two of Let's
we
Get
have
Organized.
returned. Yes, welcome back to Dream Idiots. We're heading back into part two of Morris's story from last week. If you listened to last week, hopefully you did the homework assignment and watched that documentary, that BBC documentary on YouTube.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, YouTube, if you haven't and you're just slacking in the back of the class, that's fine too. We'll try to keep everything up to pace so we can figure out what's going on. But if you haven't listened to part one, you might want to go back and do that, just so we're all on the same page regarding what we're trying to talk about here with the way we organize in pecking orders and social orders. So, Bryan, you got to watch Boys Alone. And
I
just to
did.
recap, it's about 10 boys left alone in one house for 5 days. They're 11 to 12 years old. They've each had a cooking course. There's a camera crew there during the day with stationary cameras at night. They always have access to their parents via phone. Production crew is there, psychologists, and a nurse is on call in case things get out of hand. This came out in 2002, directed by Kim Flitcroft, and it is called Boys Alone. So, Bryan, what'd you think about this
Frankly,
documentary?
I mean, it was not as ugly as I thought it might get. When I after after we recorded the last one, I quickly went on Google and just Googled it, and one of the links to it actually referenced Lord of the Flies, which was my joke about it in the first place. Because I mean, it's eerily similar in many respects because it's only 5 days, but it is absolute fucking chaos in the first hour when these kids get into this
Yes.
house. It's just completely bonkers, and I find it to be quite stressful. I mean, I was like anxious, like how bad is this going to get? Because I mean, is someone going to be injured? What's going to happen here? It was awful.
So the boys, as a quick rundown, here's just some names. George was the elected leader. Then there was Sim, who was a smaller kid, vegetarian. Daniel was a big, confident kid. There was Michael, who was small, very hyper. He became the outcast. There was Luke, who's another vegetarian. There was Sam. All I have by him is the ginger kid. He was the redhead. And then there was Robert, who I think was the blonde crew cut kid. Alex had the glasses. And then there were Paul and Mark, who didn't really appear too terribly much in it. I just remember their names. So what I was going to do is go day by day, very briefly, as to how things kind of broke down literally. So they spent the first hour getting to know each other and the grounds of the house, right? They kind of explored the house, explored um, the backyard, and getting to know each other and kind of figuring things out. And within 1 or 2 hours, they were literally painting on the walls. There was sticky popcorn ground into the carpet. And the thing that got me going were the water guns. And they just brought the water guns out and just started waylaying each other. And all this started around really right when they got there at 10:30 in the morning. And what I love is they cut to immediately 12 hours later. Yeah, we need to get somebody to lead us because this is not working. And that's when they held their election on day one and they elected George. What did you think of George?
It was pretty clear from the get go that he was likely to be, at or near the top because he definitely had a certain, I don't know, gravitas, which is sort of a ridiculous term to use for an 11-year-old, but he definitely seemed to have more whatever about him. He had the carriage of a leader, sort of. So it wasn't surprising at all to me that he was the one who was elected.
Yeah, and he didn't seem particularly. As you learn more about him, the more things descended into chaos, the more I kind of liked him because he was trying to hold things together. Day two rolls around, and the narrator notes there's still been no organized meal, and that everybody's basically high on sugar.
Right.
Uh, Cleaning has become a problem, and coverage of the group, basically group discussion, focuses on Sim because Sim apparently has not been doing his job helping out cleaning up. Sim gets homesick, and then some boys start to pick on him. And then as there's that just horrific scene where he's in the tent and they're just kicking soccer balls left and right at him while he's trying to sleep. And George, as a leader, is trying to defend him, right? Um, so we're already seeing things kind of start to break down, and certain kids are fulfilling certain roles. Um, we get to day three. Day 3 starts off with the chocolate bit, which is one of my favorite parts in the whole thing, where the kid comes in and he says, like, how can you eat chocolate at 9 a.m? And the
I'm
other kid
hungry.
responds, I'm hungry. Fair enough. I do love their Britishness in it, that if it had been American kids, it would have been just F
Right.
this and F that and F you, and just from the get-go, but they still have this, that's not proper, just kind of
Right.
demeanor
Right.
to it. The boys meet formally to discuss Sim's cleaning duties. And by day 3, they've put up an inflatable pool, which the narrator notes is the closest thing to a proper wash the most of the boys have had, so they've gotten there. And then Luke, Paul, and Daniel step forward and decide that they need a communal meal, which is really interesting to me, that these guys step forward and say, hey, we'll cook. We need to get everybody together. And I think that's one of my favorite insults of the entire show comes out, when he calls him a prat. You prat, you're the biggest prat I've ever seen.
Right. Only English kids would you would
Yeah.
use that as an insult.
And this is when the narrator first makes a note of the pecking order, which is what we talked about last time.
Right.
And if we think back to our original 4 roles that we've seen, we had the leader, the bully, the nerd or the outcast, and then we had the joker in the bunch. So, I don't want to go through what each kid does. George is clearly the leader because he was elected that way, but like you said, he had some kind of personality trait that allowed him to take that role. I think Daniel has kind of filled the role of the bully. Big kid,
Right.
really kind of mean. There's a couple of different, Sim is clearly the kid getting picked on. Michael is also an outcast. He's the smaller kid who's really super hyper.
Right.
As for the joker in the bunch, I mean, they're all kind of funny. I think it's Sam that calls the guy the prat. I'm not sure, but they all have a pretty good sense of humor about things. But we do start to see this breakdown almost into tribal arrangements. The boys participate then, after this, in the feminization of names, which makes sense. Growing up, I remember the last thing you wanted to be seen in a group of boys is effeminate. And so they started calling each other Pauline and Georgina. And do you remember that part? And Danielle, and just they started doing that bit. And then Sim seems to come around to be made to clean up everything after the meal, since apparently one of the things about Sim is that it seems like he really wasn't doing any cleaning whatsoever. He'd go off and goof off when everybody else was trying to work. But day 3 is when things really start to kind of fall apart. Michael is really cast into the role of the outcast, the nerd, the troublemaker. And when I look at Michael, I see a kid who probably has some kind of hyperactivity disorder.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, he destroys quite a few things in there. He's clearly got some things roiling beneath the surface he's trying to work out. But we start to see some first real signs of what you called, and what the review you looked at called, Lord of the Flies type behavior. They actually call for a whipping of Michael. They tie him to a chair. And I mean, it's not quite as bad as Piggy, but it's close, right? For Lord of the Flies. And by 9 o'clock that night of day 3, the boys have broken down into 2 tribes, the loud and the quiet, with the loud taking the large room and the quiet taking the small. Michael continues to act out in very odd behavior, says that he wants to scream until I lose my voice, which is very sad and very, quite disturbing. But I think also what we see here is this idea that once a group gets too large, you're going to have that kind of breakdown. And maybe that's why the scientists way back in 1979 had the cabins of only 4 boys each. Because if you start, and maybe that totally negates my idea of maybe you should have more roles for the boys, because once you get past a certain size, the group becomes unmanageable.
Right. Sure.
And here you're dealing with a group that's 2.5 times as large as what they were dealing with in the first sociological experiment. Now, day 4, from a film standpoint, that's the one that starts with the long, slow shot through the wrecked house. You just remember the insanity of the paint is everywhere. The kitchen is a mess. There's just everything seems to be destroyed. And Michael is being blamed for pretty much all of it. And Robert, who's been really quiet and not much of a player in this, suggests beating Michael up. which all of a sudden goes from like 0 to 60. It's like, oh my goodness, we don't hear from you. And then all of a sudden it's like, I say we just smack him around a bit.
Right. Bash his brains in, right?
And this is really just the second time, because I think Sim requests to talk to his parents on day 1 or 2. By 3 p.m., the boys consult with the staff over Michael's situation. So they turn to adults, they turn to leadership to figure out what to do about the Michael situation. And they all seem to have turned on Michael, but by the time they're done with the psychologist, they agree that they all played a part in the destruction, which is clearly true,
Right.
because
Right.
we've seen them do it.
Right.
And then in the saddest part, to me, and the saddest part of it is that Michael kind of curls up into a ball, almost in a fetal position on the bed, and just no longer communicates with the rest of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And George and one of the others, I think it's Alex, try to talk to him. He just doesn't want to hear it.
Right. Just shuts down.
Shuts down. And then comes the hedgehog hunt, which to me was like, oh, here we go. And fortunately, the crew stepped in at that point, because it's like, what are these boys going to do left alone with a poor hedgehog? That hedgehog's not going to make it. We all know that. And by 3 a.m., the noisy, quiet tribal war starts up again on day 4. And then by day 5, things get really dark. The boys get very serious about the war between the rooms. There's one kid, I think it's Sam, who trades. The groups go from 5-on-5 to 6-on-4 because Sam keeps trading sides. There's a lot of homophobia, slurs, mom jokes, or what passes for mom jokes with these kids, and just utter destruction throughout the house. I mean, they're going down the stairs on cardboard slides. And then my favorite bit was when the one kid is putting styrofoam through a cheese grater.
He's great.
Like, you little shit. Do you know how hard that's going to be to clean up? And then we get to day 6, and then the boys are kind of really forced to look in on themselves. Oh my God, what did we do? What have we wrought? And I love the parents' reactions. Hey, why'd you do?
The parents show up to pick up their kids, peer in the window. It's like, why did you do this? I mean, it was that house. I mean, whoever owned that damn property, I mean, that house had 6 months of abuse in 5 days.
It was
6 years. Hell, I mean, it's just awful.
It would need total recarpeting, probably stripped
down at the studs, right?
Stripped down to the studs and totally redone. And the parents were, I mean, truly in the word awe, where awe suggests like wonder and terror at the same time. Like,
right.
Oh my God, this
rubbernecking is like, yeah,
this came out of my child. Right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a review here from a gal called Snapper1 on IMDb. And then I just kind of want to talk generally about the pecking order and where it comes from, and wrap up with a few things as it pertains to this particular documentary. Snapper1 wrote, so if you're into horror movies, sci-fi with lots of destruction, gory phantasms, Creature from the Black Lagoon, or Night of the Living Dead type situations, then by all means, you'll thoroughly enjoy the psychological thriller. It was made for you. Because there is a certain anxiety, and even you mentioned it early on, that there is this anxiety of, when are these, I mean, and the researchers is like, when are you going to step in? I mean, when are you going to step in? Because clearly what this Michael kid is going through is, but then again, this was made 20 years ago.
Right.
So maybe there's a bit more tolerance, or a bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say ignorance, but a little bit more latitude in what can a kid take in terms of like psychological trauma. But clearly that Michael kid was hurting and needed to get out of that situation, in my opinion. But what do we do about the inherent cruelty of the pecking order, and can we do anything about it? Is one of the things that I wonder about, because we have not only the natural pecking order that we've seen go on, say, in this documentary, but we also have the hierarchical pecking order that is imposed upon us through, say, rank, through management, through various, even in the church, has a certain pecking order as to how we succeed or fail within a societal structure. So what do we do about that in what Howard Bloom from last episode would call that inbuilt mechanism for destruction, not only of things, but of other people. Because if that had gone on a couple more days, I mean, who knows where that would have gone with those kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think, I don't know, almost impossible to know. I mean, yes, it was 20 years ago, but 20 years ago is not, I mean, not that long ago. I mean, this could have been 30 years ago. If you did that documentary again right now, you would have the exact same outcome, I think. I mean, have things changed that much in the last 20 years? I mean, I guess Adderall and things like that are certainly prescribed much more. And so there, some number of those kids would be on medication to help them with whatever their issues are, probably because there's, that has been rampant the last 20 years. But that predilection, or whatever you want to call it, for just mayhem and destruction because, the shackles have been dropped, absolutely would happen every single time.
I agree with that, and I wonder if there's a certain the physical destruction of the property probably would happen. I wonder if there's a little bit more, because this is something that I observe in my sons and their friends. There's a little bit more compassion for kids who are different, it seems, from these new generations. There's a lot more acceptance of difference from what I've seen. I don't know if that's across the board, but it's like my kids openly talk about, they'll ask me, so, did you have any Jewish friends growing up? And I have to think about it. I'm like, oh, did I? Probably not until college, just because I grew up in a very closed environment.
Right.
Do you have any Muslim friends? Oh, definitely not until graduate school, just because of my upbringing. Right. And it's like, well, did you have any gay friends? Is probably didn't know it at the time, because that wasn't discussed until college, right. Or graduate school. So I wonder if there's a little bit more acceptance on an interpersonal level within that system of relations that kind of plays into the pecking order, where you don't have to do things like the feminization of names and things like that as a part of a ritual. That being said, I know it still happens to a certain extent because I've heard it and I've seen it, but
oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all anecdotal. So one of the things that I kind of want to leave us with is this idea that comes from, and I can't do an exact quote here, but this idea from Aristotle. And one of the things I always talk about with Aristotle is this idea of moderation, everything in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
If you eat too much, you're going to get sick. You don't eat enough, you're going to get sick. Do everything moderately. And another thing that Aristotle said, and again, I don't have an exact quote, but one of the things that I think Aristotle promoted was this idea of being excellent at one thing, but be very good at a lot of little things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have expertise in one area, but a well-rounded person will know a little bit about a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And I think that plays into it, because when we have to take different roles within a pecking order, that allows us to have more fluidity and less trauma when we have to shift from being the leader to being the joker, or being the leader to being, okay, this is not my bailiwick. I'm just going to do what I'm told and lift stuff and put stuff down, because this is clearly not my area. And along with that, what I'd like to do is I would like to read from a fellow by the name of Kurt Vonnegut. This is from one of his, I won't say lesser known works, because I think all of his work should be known, but this is from Bluebeard, which came out in 82 or 83, I think. And Bluebeard is about a painter who has this painting in his barn that he claims he's working on, but no one is sure if he's actually telling the truth. But I used to use this particular piece as a way to get my students talking about the way communication technology changes their sense of what self is and what individuality is. This came out in 87, actually. So here we go. And this guy narrating is the painter. And he says, I was obviously born to draw better than most people. Other people are obviously born to sing and dance or explain the stars in the sky or do magic tricks or be great leaders or athletes and so on. I think that could go back to the time when people had to live in small groups of relatives, maybe 50 or 100 people at the most, and evolution or God or whatever arranged things genetically to keep the little families going, to cheer them up so they could all have somebody to tell stories around the campfire at night, and somebody else to paint the pictures on the walls of the caves, and somebody else who wasn't afraid of anything, and so on. That's what I think. And of course, a scheme like that doesn't make sense anymore because simply moderate giftedness has been made worthless by the printing press and radio and television and satellites and all of that. A moderately gifted person who would have been a community treasure 1,000 years ago has to give up, has to go into some other line of work because modern communications put him or her daily into competition with nothing but world's champions. The entire planet can get along nicely now with maybe a dozen champion performers in each area of human giftedness. A moderately gifted person has to keep his or her gifts all bottled up until, in a manner of speaking, he or she gets drunk at a wedding and tap dances on the coffee table like Fred Astaire or Ginger Rogers. We have a name for him or her. We call him or her an exhibitionist. And how do we reward this exhibitionist? We say to him or her the next morning, "Wow, were you ever drunk last night?" And I guess that's my way of saying that maybe being somewhat of a generalist will allow for more flexibility within what Bloom calls the social body. And it's a change from being unwitting bodies to bodies of the sense of self within the greater whole. And it's not subjectivity or objectivity, because those are very hard things to pin down, but more of an inner subjectivity that I understand that I'm part of a greater process. But even within that field, I can have a little bit of individuality and a little bit of flexibility. And that both removes the pressure of having to perform in a certain way in every situation, and understand that in each situation, you might have to perform a little bit differently. Sometimes you're not going to be the leader. And thankfully, sometimes you won't be the outcast.
Right, sure.
But, someday it's your turn in the barrel, right? I mean, so everybody has to do it at some point, has to take on a role they don't want. And I don't know if any of this makes any sense, but I find this ongoing look at the way we organize ourselves socially. And when we come to this discussion, and when what Vonnegut says about perhaps we're too large nowadays, perhaps we're too big, just look at what's going on in the United States. We talk about two tribes now, tribal thinking in the
Right.
United States. And I keep coming back to, we're so big. I mean, my goodness, we are so big as a people. How can we not start dividing into subgroups and start fighting among ourselves? It just makes sense that that would happen. And I don't know what to do about it, and to urge everybody, hey, be more of a generalist. I mean, that's going to get rotten fruit thrown at you, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there very clearly is this viewpoint. It seems like that engaging in moderation is recklessly engaging in, I don't know, weakness. I mean, being strident and adopting a completely rigid, extreme point of view or standpoint or skill or whatever it is viewed as being strength.
Yeah, and we live in such an age of specialization where you talk to some people and it's like, well, I had to call a guy to fix this, and you're like, really? I mean, that's not that hard to fix.
Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Come on.
Right. Well, I don't want to be. I mean, well, I didn't know how to look. Go online. I mean, there's tons of tutorials online where you can learn how to do stuff.
Right. YouTube.
And I don't always get it right. And when I get to a point where I'm messing up more than I get it right, that's when I call an expert in and say, yeah, I've totally. And the guy will come in and look at it and say, yeah, here's what you did wrong. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense now that an expert is pointing it out to me. That we don't all have to be ubermensch and be able to do everything perfectly, but to know a little bit about everything is pretty cool. I mean, it's not a bad way to live. And I look at my late father, who was, yes, he was a surgeon and he was very good at it, but he could also fix a car, and he knew how to farm land, and he knew how to ride a horse, and he was a pretty fair golfer, and just he had all these different things that he could do fairly well.
Right.
And as a result, when he got sick and couldn't operate, he could go out and work on his cars for a while. He wasn't rambling around like, must apply surgical techniques to everything I do. He understood that he couldn't do that in every situation. Anyway,
that in and of itself, in my view, is a bit of a skill. I mean, there are people that if they work on something incredibly hard and they don't excel at it, they can't enjoy it because it's not perfect or really close to perfect. I mean, golf. Pick it. People have hobbies or professional endeavors that they engage in that they strive at, and they think they should be, quote, whatever it is, quote unquote, experts at. Talk about golf is a perfect example. What a fickle thing, which you could play nonstop and never really get better at. And you could still choose to just recognize the fact that you're not very good and still enjoy it, or your failure to improve could drive you completely fucking nuts. And there are folks that are like that as well, that just can't possibly accept anything close to failure, right? So
I just reached a point with golf where I was halfway through a round when I was living in Utah, and I was like, it's a beautiful day. There's mountains in the distance. I think I'd rather be up in those mountains than down here doing this. Yeah, yeah, I'm done. If I want to go on a walk, I'll go on a walk. I don't need a bunch of sticks and a ball.
yeah, golf is something I admire in others. I mean, I'll happily go caddy,
Mhm. Oh yeah,
watch and drink a beer and enjoy a nice walk. Absolutely. And you could have
yeah.
all the frustration and break your clubs over your knee.
Well,
That's way funnier.
I've got a cousin who's a hell of a golfer,
Mhm.
and you know him. You know my cousin Robert. He's a hell of a golfer, and it's like he loved it so much he wanted to make a profession out of it. I'm like, hey man, go for it.
Right.
Um, I'll drive your golf cart for you. I mean, that's about as good as I am on a golf course, but I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. Or when I go bowling and someone says, you're not a very good bowler. It's like, never set out to be. Just
right. Was not a life goal.
didn't start this evening out thinking I'm bowling 300, baby.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm going to keep it out of those gutter thingies on the side. That's what I'm doing it. Anyway.
And as far as Boys Alone is concerned, I mean, I have not watched Girls Alone, but watching Boys Alone just validated for me the perspective that men can basically, I mean, destroy anything. I mean, women should just really be allowed to have control of everything for, I don't know, a couple of 100 years, because boys just fuck everything up. My God.
What
They
was
just
it?
do.
Who was it that said men are basically bears with furniture? I mean, just
Yeah, it's like, my set point may be different, but when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, even if I was told I could paint on the wall, I wouldn't have done it. Like, this belongs to somebody. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just, like, no, that's completely irresponsible. I'd be aware of that. And my parents would have been absolutely fucking livid. They would have blown their stack. You did what? Like, and no. So that's part of the reason why that was so stressful. I watched that, like, gee, when I was that age, if I had done that, what would my, what would their reaction have been? You brings new meaning to the word recalcitrant or something. My God, little turds.
Why is your mom in the ER? Because she blew a gasket. She was just
she freaked out. You spread chocolate sauce on the walls? Why?
That is good for no one.
I don't know. It seemed like a thing to do. Dumbasses.
Well, when you're the father of boys, and when you're a boy, one of the things that you realize you're going to get it for an answer a lot of the times is, why'd you do this? I don't know.
Yeah, just learn to stop asking those questions. Like, no, he doesn't know.
All right, there you have it. Let's get organized. Part 2, the pecking order and other things. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched that documentary, please go do so. Sources for this were Lucifer Principle by Howard Bloom, and Boys Alone, a documentary directed by Kim Flitcroft, available on YouTube. Check them out. It's good stuff.
Yes, and don't kill hedgehogs. Just saying.
Yes, leave hedgehogs
if given the chance, don't do it. All right, moving over to me.
Sure.
So we're doing sort of an extended curse word of the week.
Uh-oh.
It is time for the Dream Idiots curse word of the week.
So this week, so we're going to talk about something called a jizz score, which I'm betting you have never
Oh God, Bryan. My
never heard of
God.
before. Here you go. Here's the definition.
Jizz scoring. A process of geocoding curse words from Twitter. And Morris, you should really get your mind out of the gutter.
It's not anything dirty. And that was I call her Mean Alice, or Malice for short. That's who that was. And so Giz score, GIZ score. So what we're going to talk about here today is basically the geographical propensity for different curse words to be used in different areas of the United States. And so
I love this. It's like the dirty version of, do you say grocery sack or grocery bag? I love it. I love it.
Is it a Coke or is it a pop? Right. So,
or is it soda water? Yeah.
Soda.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there are these two guys that are both lecturers, professors of linguistics at Aston University. It's in Birmingham in the UK. And what they did is they went back through and gathered up something in the area of 9 billion tweets from, I believe it's from November 1st, 2013 through October of 2014. So 9 billion tweets. And they geocoded it by county for the entire lower 48 states. And they also then, so they cross-referenced population density against these tweets. So what I'm going to show you in this series of slides, and we'll have to sort of describe this since we're doing this in a podcast, I will actually post this. We're recording video as well. So I'll post either this video or post this as a slideshow online. So we're going to look at a series of slides, and we'll between the two of us, we can endeavor to walk through what we're looking at here. So these graphics will actually depict accurately, also incorporating population, where different curse words are used across the country. And so we're going to start off here with slide number 1. This is, hopefully you can see that.
Yes, I can. Mm-hmm.
So this is the jizz score for darn. So if you want to describe for folks what you're looking at.
There's a whole lot of blue around. Basically, if you take Washington State and go down the Rocky Mountains through Texas and all around the thing, it's pretty much blue. There's a red spot right where Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana meet, and then there's a whole bunch of red in the Midwest. And I'm guessing that is pretty high, right? The darn.
Yeah. So blue are low levels of this use in tweets, and then the darker the orange, the more prevalent this word is used, at least on Twitter. So darn, not used on either coast at all, or in the South really at all, besides one little pocket in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then somewhat used, Minnesota, Dakotas, Idaho, Wyoming, Nebraska.
So this is the Cohen brothers hypothesis, right?
Right.
Okay, right there in the, okay.
So that's darn.
Darn.
Move to damn. Holy moly, the map changes.
Wow.
When you go from darn to damn, suddenly those Southerners, West Texas, good portion of the coastal plains of Texas, and all of the South loves the word damn. God damn it.
Yep. It's a southern solid stripe of red. There's a little bit of pink at the tip of Florida, and then there's a swath of Texas in the middle that doesn't really use it that much, but yep. West Texas and then East Texas on through like Brownsville on all the way across. I mean, it's wow. That's
all the way up to Mid-Atlantic states, all the way to basically Delaware is orange. Yep. So people love the word damn across the South and Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
Again, so in El Paso, I don't know. It's so peculiar that this is this, but Montana, people in Montana do not say damn, or in Maine, they do not use this word. Next up is bastard. So on Twitter, if you're in Maine and you have lots of other friends that are also in Maine, apparently bastard is used pretty much only in Maine and a little bit in New Hampshire. And that's kind of it. Pockets of North Dakota and elsewhere. but bastard is
Eastern Montana and a tip of Western Montana.
Right.
Little bits of red here and there, but yeah, it's
Right.
mainly Maine. Wow.
Maine, just mainly in Maine. So there must be lots of bastards in Maine. I don't know what that really means.
Pepperidge Farm has bastards.
Then we have a couple here that are a little bit more peculiar. Gosh, not really a curse word so much. Texas, Appalachia, some random pockets here and there.
Utah has some out in Western Utah.
Which,
and
yeah, that makes sense. New England,
Idaho, that whole portion right there, Idaho, Wyoming, that's all LDS country, so I can see that. Okay.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, gosh, there are an awful lot of Mormons here.
Yeah.
Darn.
Well, that's kind of the Bible Belt, right? I'm going through Texas and Kentucky
West Texas,
and Tennessee.
yeah.
All through that is the Bible Belt. So, gosh, yeah. And then Nebraska's got a nice little dollop of
a hot spot of gosh.
Hot spot of gosh.
First time that sentence has ever been uttered. A hot spot of gosh. Douche.
What?
So this is the geocoding for douche. So people in the South, this is the opposite of the slide we were looking at earlier. People in the South do not use the word douche. South Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, do not use douche. But God dang, Minnesota, Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Nevada, they love the word douche. It's all over up there.
Look at Utah. What the hell?
We were just talking about gosh.
All of Wyoming? Just about?
Right.
Pretty much all of Kansas, all of Iowa. I would think this would be more of an East Coast thing. Like, I mean, when I lived in New York, I heard it all the time. Well, variants of it too, douchebag, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It barely I mean, there's a little bit of pink and light orange in New York and like Western Pennsylvania, Western Ohio, but it's a Midwest thing. And look at Montana.
Yeah.
What's going on in Montana with douche?
Yeah. Well, and Wyoming, I mean, okay, they're like 10 people in all of Wyoming. So, but they love all 10 of them love the word douche.
Wow. Okay.
So at least it's somewhat similar on the next one, asshole. So again, in the South, people in the South do not use the word asshole. And I'm sorry we're laughing at something that you can't see, but if you want to see these as well, we'll make them available. So
look at New England.
Yeah, so we're looking at a map of the lower 48 states and where and the uses of the word asshole on Twitter. The South does not use the word asshole at all, but all of New England and New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, they love the word asshole. Again, not surprising probably, but still funny.
Southern Arizona, the southern tip of Texas, a good swath of both of the Dakotas, and then a good chunk of Nevada, Idaho, and Northern California.
Right. So,
and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan just by itself hanging out up there.
Bright orange. Lots of assholes up there. And next one we're going to bitch. People in the South. So again, Southern Texas, East Texas, all of the South, they love the word bitch. Midwest, sort of North, Montana, all that, do not use the word bitch at all. It's like a night and day difference.
The thumb of Michigan, and then in and around Chicago, and then what is that?
And then in and around Detroit.
Right, is that St. Louis right there? Where Illinois? Okay, that's St. Louis, and then basically the Eastern Seaboard. Pretty much all of Florida except the middle strap that cuts across the Gulf to the Atlantic. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So good old bitch. Okay, next one. Crap. Not that illustrative. Californians don't say crap. Eastern Seaboard doesn't say crap. A lot of Texas loves the word crap.
Oklahoma loves crap.
Oklahoma loves crap, which that makes sense.
Crap.
And whenever I see the word crap, the one time I had my mouth washed out with soap when I was a child was for saying the word crap. So, but Tennessee loves crap.
A good 2/3 of Texas loves crap. That's a good word for Texas.
Okay, next one is fuck. Fuck is used everywhere. All of California, all of basically the Eastern Seaboard again. Fuck is pretty prevalent.
Yeah, but there's also a real again, Utah, Colorado, even reaching into where I am in Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, and then I'm surprised about Oklahoma. That's interesting. And then across Appalachia, there's yeah, but it's all through. It seems to be all over the place. Yeah.
And it's on the coasts, and I believe it's the case that education level is also higher along the coast. So in my mind, better educated folks love the word fuck. Maybe, I don't know. That may or may not correlate. I don't know. So
that
a
is
few more.
fascinating.
And this, it should be said that the data gathering in this, they don't account for context, and so it could be, who knows. So the one that was for douche, maybe it's one of those hot spots was near a Massengill manufacturing. I have no idea. But here's hell. So Southern Baptists, probably enjoy tweeting the word hell, because hell is used extensively again in the South, but nowhere else.
Well, that might be the most compact group of swearing we've had.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's a chunk of East Texas. I mean, literally just like Houston and East.
Uh-huh.
Kind of hops over New Orleans.
Right.
But then it's pretty solid throughout the South and the Panhandle of Florida. Wow, that's
so
interesting.
So hell is just in the South. Then you have motherfucker. So motherfucker's not really used that much anywhere. So South and West Texas, southern half of New Mexico, parts of Arizona, a little part of Nevada, and a bit of New England. But at least on Twitter, motherfucker is not used.
Wow.
And then we've one more that is sort of has a very clear north-south divide. Shit. Also used principally in the South.
Okay. Yeah.
So that bitch ain't shit, I guess, is a very prevalent Southern expression. I don't know. But people in Maine and Montana don't say shit. Slut. Also in the South.
Yeah, but there's also a chunk of it out
in Montana.
There's a chunk of it in the Midwest, and then right around western Utah, eastern Nevada, southern Idaho, right up near the Canadian border in North Dakota, through the Rust Belt. There's a good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a weird distribution. Like, I know what I'm talking about.
And then similar, whore, also not used in the South. But a weird pocket in the Dakotas, Montana, and Wyoming.
Yeah, what's going on up there near Amarillo and Lubbock and
right. Yeah, who knows?
Western Pennsylvania, New York. It's big. It looks like it's big in Buffalo down to Pittsburgh. All of West Virginia, lots of West Virginia, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Wow. But not a lot in the South. Interesting. Very blue in the South. Very dark blue.
And there you have it. The history of curse words on Twitter and how they shake out regionally, nationally. And I will post these somewhere.
Yeah, I was interested because when you did the variants, like when you use fuck, do you use, can you use it as a gerund? Can you use it as a, how do you go about deciding that? But that's very interesting.
It says in the summary that it is, regardless of context. So every time it appears, it's noted, regardless of context. So anyway, there you have it, folks. So when I post this, you can go online and look up your neck of the woods and see what curse words your neighbors enjoy.
Yeah, because I was looking at like the San Antonio area, and I was like, oh, it's kind of on the border of all these words, and then you got to the big one, and it was like, oh, there it is. There's my hometown. All right.
Yep. And there were a few that they also did. They did not do the N word, which, because I guess you probably can't tweet that anyway, but something tells me that probably tracks in the South as well, if I had to guess. And there were a few others that were like, why did you track that word? They had the geocoding map for the word fuckboy, which I don't think I've ever heard that word before. It's like, is that a curse? is it a curse word? Like, I don't, okay, whatever. So I didn't include that one, but still, it's sort of, funny and interesting data.
Wow. Man, what a country. Look at that.
Yes. Purple Mountain Majesty. There you have it. And that's
So
all I got.
Now what we need to do is we need to overlay this with Coke, pop, soda maps and bag sack. And then, like, what do you call the little things that divide up streets? Are they medians? Are they islands? Are they
access roads versus frontage roads? Yeah, all those things.
Crap. I bumped into the median and spilled my pop. Gosh, that makes me mad.
Gosh darn.
Wow. Thanks, Bryan. That was awesome.
Yep, there you have it. Jizz maps. So if you Google Jizz maps, just be very careful.
And that's Jiz.
Giz.
Giz. Sorry. See, I did the GJ thing again, like in the spelling bee. Haven't learned a thing, have I?
Yep. And there you have it. And we're done again for yet another Dream Idiots. Thanks for listening. Please share and rate and subscribe. We're available now on every platform, we think. Let us know what you think. You can check us out online. Just frankly, just Google us. You'll find us everywhere.
Everywhere. Join us.
And I guess we'll be back again soon. Do you have anything else to say?
I do not. Have a good time, everybody. Have a good week or a good whenever you're listening to this. We've had some contact with some folks who like to binge it while they're working around the house. Great. It's a good way to listen to it. Thanks for the feedback. Y'all hang in there and we'll be back with you soon. Thanks.
Bye.